1. The last elevator. Every night, the janitor worked alone in the old office building. One night, he heard a faint crying from the elevator shaft. Despite the building being empty, the elevator lights flickered and the doors creaked open. Peering inside, he saw a little girl sobbing in the corner. He stepped in to help her, but the doors slammed shut and the elevator plummeted. When it stopped, the doors opened to a dark, unfinished basement. The girl stood at the entrance, smiling eerily. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered, vanishing into thin air as the elevator doors closed again, trapping him inside. 2. The playground shadow. Parents always warned their children not to play on the swings after dark, saying it was haunted. One evening, curious, a group of teenagers decided to test the legend. As they swung higher and higher, they noticed a shadowy figure standing by the slide, watching them. Laughing nervously, they called out, but the figure remained silent. Suddenly, the swings began to twist and turn on their own, throwing the kids off. One of them managed to capture a photo before running away. When they looked at the picture later, they saw not one, but a dozen shadowy figures surrounding the swings, their faces twisted in rage. 3. The forgotten library. Working late at the university library, I often felt a chill in the air, but brushed it off. One night, I heard whispers among the bookshelves. Following the sound, I found a hidden section of the library, filled with ancient, dusty tomes. One book in particular caught my eye, bound in dark leather and locked. I pried it open and began to read. The text described a librarian who went mad and cursed the library. Suddenly, I felt cold fingers grip my shoulder. I turned around to see an old, decrepit librarian with hollow eyes. "Return the book," she hissed. I dropped it and fled, but when I looked back, the book was gone, and the library door was locked from the outside. 4. The train station. Catching the late train home, I always sat in the same seat. One night, a man sat beside me, dressed in old-fashioned clothes. He started talking about a train accident that happened years ago, describing it in eerie detail. As he spoke, the train lights flickered, and the carriage grew colder. Suddenly, he grabbed my arm and whispered, "This is where I died." I yanked my arm away, and he vanished. The next day, I read an article about the anniversary of a train crash. The man in the photo was the same one who had sat next to me, his face frozen in a haunting smile. 5. The hotel room. On a business trip, I checked into a small, old hotel. The receptionist handed me a key and warned me not to enter room 303. Curious, I couldn't resist. Late that night, I snuck up to the 3rd floor and found the door ajar. Inside, the room was covered in dust, with furniture draped in sheets. I heard faint whispers and saw shadows moving. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me. I turned around to see a ghostly figure standing in front of me, its face twisted in anger. "You shouldn't be here," it growled. I fled, but when I reached the lobby, the receptionist was gone, and the hotel was abandoned. 6. The cemetery watcher. Walking through the cemetery at dusk, I noticed a man standing by a gravestone, staring intently. I approached him to see if he needed help, but he didn't respond. As I got closer, I saw his eyes were empty, and his skin was pale and cold. I quickly backed away and left the cemetery, feeling his gaze follow me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I heard footsteps outside my window. Peeking out, I saw the man from the cemetery standing in my yard, his eyes glowing. The next morning, I found muddy footprints leading from the cemetery to my front door, but no sign of the man. 7. The haunted mirror. At a yard sale, I found an antique mirror with an intricately carved frame. The seller warned me it was cursed, but I didn't believe in such things. I hung it in my bedroom and admired its beauty. That night, I woke to see my reflection moving on its own, a sinister grin spreading across its face. Terrified, I tried to cover the mirror, but my reflection reached out and grabbed my hand. "You belong to me now," it whispered. I smashed the mirror in desperation, but the reflection laughed as it shattered, leaving me with a sense of dread that I could never escape. 8. The taxi ride. After a long night out, I hailed a taxi to take me home. The driver was silent, his face hidden in shadows. As we drove, I noticed we were heading in the wrong direction. "This isn't the way," I said, but he ignored me. Panic set in as the streets grew unfamiliar and desolate. Suddenly, the taxi stopped in front of an old, abandoned house. The driver turned to face me, revealing hollow eyes and a skeletal grin. "End of the line," he rasped. I scrambled out and ran, looking back to see the taxi vanish into thin air, leaving me stranded in the middle of nowhere. 9. The shopping mall. Working late at the mall, I often felt like I was being watched. One night, as I closed up the store, I saw a young girl standing alone in the hallway. I approached her, asking if she was lost. She pointed to a store that had been closed for years, saying her parents were inside. I followed her, but when I entered the store, it was dark and empty. Turning around, the girl was gone. I heard a whisper behind me, "Help us." I fled in terror, but the next day, I found a photograph on my desk of the girl and her family, all of whom had disappeared in that very mall decades ago. 10. The urban legend. Growing up, we always heard stories about the Screaming Bridge, a place where a tragic accident supposedly claimed the lives of several children. One night, my friends and I decided to test the legend. We parked near the bridge and waited in silence. Just after midnight, we heard faint screams echoing through the night. Terrified, we started the car to leave, but it wouldn't start. Panic set in as the screams grew louder, now accompanied by ghostly figures appearing in the mist. We finally got the car started and sped away. The next morning, we found children's handprints all over the car and a note on the windshield, "Thank you for playing with us." Thank you for watching. For more short stories under 10 minutes, click on the video on your screen, or if you want longer stories based on real-life events or fictionals, click on the playlist appearing on your screen now. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more thrilling tales. See you in the next video.